Gospel reading today comes from Luke chapter 19. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost." Zacchaeus. Kind of a cool name. I ever had another kid, I think I'd name him Zacchaeus. Or not. The name, ironically, means justice. Justice. How's that for a name for a chief tax collector? So we talked about tax collectors last week, and remember the two were praying, and the tax collector was vindicated because he was thanking God and saying, "Forgive me because I'm a sinner." Remember that? Well, this guy, Zacchaeus, he's a chief tax collector. He's the sinner in chief. And here he is hiding up in a tree, trying to see Jesus. Now, we're not really sure why, because when you read the text, there's a lot of linguistic stuff going on, and we'll get a little bit into that in a bit. But it says that he couldn't see on account of the crowd, for he was short in stature. Now, we always assume they're talking about Zacchaeus, right? Because our vision of Jesus is very inflated, right? I mean, physically speaking. Like when we picture Jesus, we picture him to be dark complected, good looks, hair like Fabio, maybe a little darker though, right? Muscular. I mean, a really good looking guy. I mean, somebody kind of like Robbie or something, okay? So, couldn't help it. But what if Jesus was the short one? The syntax there is pointing towards Jesus and saying Jesus was short in stature. And therefore Zacchaeus couldn't see him, so he had to climb a tree so he could see him on account of the crowds that were all around Jesus. That's a possibility. See, our mind likes to play tricks on us a little bit. We like to see and hear what we want to see and hear. We like to read things into the text. But maybe it's right. Maybe Jesus was just fine and Zacchaeus was a wee little man. We don't know that. But another possibility, something more likely, is that when they said that Zacchaeus is short in stature, they were talking about his character. The dude was short on character. Right? He was going around to the houses and shaking them up. Right? Knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, come on, cough it up." Because think about it, this is what he did for a living. He's a Jew. He goes to the houses of his brothers and sisters, the fellow Jews, and says, "Okay, here's how much you got to give me." And this could change. Right? Today it could be this much, tomorrow it could be that much. Because if they didn't give it, the Romans were going to come knocking on the door, and he didn't want that. Right? So Caesar said, "Okay, this is how much you got to collect." And then Zacchaeus and other tax collectors like him put on their share. Right? They're going to take their cut. So they add a little on top, or a lot. And they collect, and they go on their merry way. So it says Zacchaeus was rich. Well, no wonder. He was lining his pockets with the dough of his fellow people. Sinner in chief. That's who this guy was. So he's short on character, and obviously the Jews didn't like him very much. I mean, he was persona non grata. Get this guy out of here. And so when Jesus comes along, and Zacchaeus wants to see him, the people are making a wall. They're like, get out of here. You're nobody. Right? They're trying to keep him out so they can't see him. We want to see Jesus. We want to see this guy walking along that all the hubbub is about. You stay back there, little man, because we don't want anything to do with you. We know who you are. We know what you do. Right? So he climbs up a tree so he can see Jesus. And Jesus says to him, "Zacchaeus, get down. Get out of that tree. Because tonight I'm staying with you." Now, to call him down out of the tree, there were two things going on there. There was an invitation. Invitation saying, Zacchaeus, I'm staying in your house tonight. I'm going to honor you with my presence. Okay? It was an invitation. But the other part of it was a command, saying, Zacchaeus, haven't you learned yet? You're always stepping on people and trying to get up on top. Knock it off. Get out. Come be with everybody else. So in essence, Jesus was talking about this message of equality because, while Zacchaeus was trying to go up, Jesus said, get back down here. And while the people are trying to keep Zacchaeus out, he's saying, let him in. In fact, I'm going to go stay with him today. I'll show you guys. And that's kind of how it works with the church, right? When the church says, you're out, Jesus says, you're in. When the church says, you're not one of us, Jesus says, oh, yes, you are. When the church says, go away, Jesus says, well, come and stay at your house. That's the way that Jesus works. Because he's got this radical welcome. Always inviting people into the fold, welcoming them back no matter who they are. Right? That's just what Jesus does. So Zacchaeus is up in this tree, and Zacchaeus is saying, hey, if I've hurt anybody, if I've messed anybody over, I'm going to repay him fourfold. Okay? Anything I've done against people, I'm going to make reparation for. But the cool thing is, this text, in English, it's written in future tense. I will. Right? In the Greek, it's actually present tense. I am. I am repaying back to everybody that I've messed over. I am giving back to people what's their due. I am making reparation for the harm that I've caused. So in a sense, I look at this and I think, wait a minute. No wonder Jesus knew his name. I'll bet you those two met before. Imagine this. Zacchaeus may have even just seen Jesus in passing. Maybe they never spoke. Maybe they did. Maybe Zacchaeus made some kind of a promise. I'm going to make things right. Right? So Jesus sees him up in the tree. He's like, Zacchaeus, have you done it? Remember what we talked about? He's like, hey, I've been doing it. And I'm still doing it. I'm getting things right. I'm fixing things. Good for you, Zacchaeus. Now get down here. I'm coming to your house. Brings him back in. Confirms that he did what he promised he'd do. He reaffirms who Zacchaeus is. Yeah, he may be doing a job that's not very desirable, maybe doing something that's not very nice, but he's still one of the flock. And Zacchaeus knew when that first time when he met Jesus, he saw Jesus and he got a vision. A vision to say, I want to be like that. I'm tired of messing people with. I'm tired of doing harm. I'm tired of doing wrong. I want to be like that. I want to help people instead of hurt people. And so he developed a vision of who and how he wanted to be, and Jesus was that vision. And so he starts to change. He starts to model himself. And so when Jesus encounters him again, well, did you get it done? How are you doing on that thing we talked about? And he was making progress. And that's where Jesus says, hey, all right, good for you. Come on down. Let's go to your place. I know you've got money. You can afford to feed me. I've seen your house. But speaking of visions, there's a corporate vision too, right? So we got this individual vision where we look at Jesus as our vision of who we want to be, who we want to model ourselves after, who we want to be transformed to be like. But then there's the corporate vision. You've got Habakkuk writing these words, how long? Right? How long must I cry out to you, O Lord, before you come and help us? How long is it going to take before you start to do something? Before our words stop falling on deaf ears and you start acting, oh God? How long? Right? And God tells Habakkuk, he says, how long? Have you been doing anything to make it happen? How long what? What's the vision? What do you want to happen? What? You have no vision. Then why are you complaining that stuff isn't changing? Changing into what? If you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you got there now? How do you even know how to get there? In my office, there's a printout that I made from a Japanese blog years ago. It's a guy called Miki Watanabe. And it says, every day I ask myself, where do I want to be? And where am I at now? And I subtract the two. And that tells me what I need to do. So think about that. X minus 21 equals Y. Solve. Well, yes is the only answer I can think of, because you can't solve for it. You need a value, right? You need either X or Y. If you don't have X to know where you're going, if you don't have the vision, then how do you know what's lacking? How do you know what else you need to do? Right? It's impossible. You can't solve that. So God tells Habakkuk, write the vision. Make it clear. Make it so clear, oh Christ Church of Chicago, that if somebody happens to ride by this building on the bicycle, or run by, as it says, a runner, you could see him. Anybody in here on that crazy finance team that said they wanted to raise $1 million? Were you involved in that? No? Not you? That's Robin's craziness. Yeah. BHAG. Big, hairy, audacious goal. Write the vision. God doesn't write things small. God doesn't want us to write things. What's the vision? Raise $1 million? That's a true statement. That's Robin's vision. We've gotten behind her on that. She wants to raise $1 million. Why? So we can keep the lights on? So we can keep the building from falling down? Yeah, part. But more importantly, because there's a vision. Even if we haven't spelled it out perfectly and dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, there's a vision so that anybody coming by this church could say, that's home. There's a bunch of people that all look different, but yet they all look like Jesus in that building. And they come out of that building every Sunday. And during the week, they look like Jesus. Not physically, but in their words, in their actions, in their hearts, they look like Jesus. Because each one of them has a vision of who to be, and it looks like Jesus. And corporately, because they wrote a vision that was so clear that even somebody running by this building knew that's home. Friends, you might not know what it is now, but you got it. It's written in here somewhere. Put it on paper somewhere where you can see it. Write the vision. Because there's a lot of people out there who are looking for home. And it's right there.